What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another week of DTR Comics Podcast, the comics podcast where every week we take a collection of graphic material and we talk all about it. This is the first time you're going to see us. This is our first video podcast that we're doing where we're experimenting with things, and we have another podcast in the works that we want to be a video podcast. So we're going to start doing it here. Figure it out.
Well, we're experimenting and learning. So the Japanese have a phrase for like, "Please treat me kindly," and I don't know what it is, and I should probably learn it for when we actually do the manga bit. But
yeah, do you want to tell everybody about the next podcast we're gonna start up?
Basically, we have a bunch of people that are really into manga, and we're like, "Hey, what if we have a special episode of the podcast where we do something with all of these people that love manga?" And then everybody was like, yes, and we should read 9 different books. And we were like, oh, there's more interest here than we thought. Like, we're surprised at how into manga some of you are.
We're all a bunch of weebs.
Pretend to be normal, but... So we will be doing that in the coming month, actually. It should come out.
Yeah, so in about a month, the first episode of Manga Men is gonna show up, and we hope you like it.
To say.
It is, but it's a lot of alliteration, and if comic books have taught me anything, it's that alliteration is important.
I just thought about how it's like MMM, manga men, and I'm like, we should just tell people, remember M&M, but it's just MMM. So every time they see an M&M, they think of us. Because that's piggybacking off somebody else's branding.
That's all the marketing we can afford, is to tell people, look at someone else's brand and think of us. Perfect. Well, yeah, so we hope you look forward to that. Our manga podcasts that we do here have always done really well. It seems like there's a lot of interest in that. And so you're not going to see, it's going to be on the same feed, but we're going to allocate special episodes once a month to like a much larger manga topic than just kind of like sprinkling it in like we have. So things under the DTR banner are going to be strictly comics, and then that MMM banner will show up, and that's where you can find your manga content. So if that's something you're interested in, or if you know someone who's interested in that, let them know, help us network, because all we can afford is to tell you to think about M&Ms.
Yeah. We can't afford the M&Ms, but think about it.
M&M just like sues the pants off of us after one episode.
We're like, you have no money.
Like, what you gonna do? Sue us for our podcasting mics? They're like, yes. Oh.
Like, it's not worth the lawyer fees. You're losing here.
Yeah, they'd have to put in more money than they could ever get out of us.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
JP, do you want to tell us what we're talking about today?
Alrighty. Today we've been reading a comic called Visions of the Future. Is that right, or is that just the page that I was looking? The Visions.
I think that's Vision. Just the Vision is what it's called.
Okay, sorry, my bad. The Vision. I was looking at a page that looked like the title page, but basically it's Vision from Marvel. Y'all know him from the movies and whatnot, but it's really cool. I don't know. At least that's where I knew him from. And so this is quite the interesting view on him. It's Vision with his family. He's got his wife, his son and daughter. I'm guessing they're twins. I don't really know. Does it go into that? They're brother and sister anyways. But yeah.
As twins as people who were not born but manufactured.
Exactly.
Yeah. So like the premise of the whole book is basically like Vision wanted to play house, and so he synthesized a family up for himself. And yeah, things ensue.
Like, that's normal. That's fine.
Yeah, so I guess like, what is your guys' familiarity with the character of Vision?
This is the first I've ever heard of Vision having a family.
This is the first appearance of the Vision family, so you're not that far behind.
Gotcha. Well, yeah, my only familiarity with Vision is what I've seen on the Marvel movies.
Mm-hmm.
That he's basically an AI and with power from the Mind Stone and whatnot, and part of the Avengers. other than that, like I didn't really know about him before the movies.
All right.
And
How about you two?
for me, I'd seen him in the movies, but I also watched the old Avengers cartoon. Well, old. It was probably like 7 or 8 years, so not in the grand scheme of things old. And he was a little bit different in that. Like, it surprised me. The Marvel movies, they like really humanize him, like
Mm-hmm.
really, really humanize him. He's basically like a person except red. And in that TV show and in this, it's not quite the same.
Yeah, there's definitely more robot present here than, and a little bit more like playing at man than being man.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I've always found that conceit really, really interesting. I mean, some of my favorite media is like Westworld or Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, like about androids that play human. And just this question of like what it means to be human. And I think this is a really fun exploration of that same idea, basically, like just because they go through the motions is the Vision family like everybody else.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like that's an interesting thing because so much, like, there are so many stories about, like, here's somebody who's different than you, but actually they're not that different from you. And so you should, by learning to understand them, then you would, like, realize that it's the same. But I kind of really like stories that do subvert that, like Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep. I'm pretty sure Dallas and I have mentioned that so many times. We both love that book.
A good
Where
one.
it's kind of like, here are robots that are trying to be like people, but they're not. And I kind of like that just because it really shows you what makes us human.
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, my favorite media makes me look inward, right? It makes me ask things
Yeah.
about myself and learn things about myself. And I feel like one of the clearest magnifying glasses for me is this type of media where like they face the question head on, like, what is it that makes you human? And I feel like the different answers that every author has found for that have been really fascinating for me. And it comes down pretty often to like empathy and like this herd instinct that we have. And do you feel like you picked up on those themes in Vision as much, or do you feel like Tom King's trying to say something a little bit different about what it means to be human?
Well, it's interesting for me because it's like multi-layered,
Mm-hmm.
where the visions do things that you're kind of like, I don't know that that was a super good thing, but it was like a logical decision, but it seemed kind of human, where
Mm-hmm.
the wife like, oh, I'm gonna murder this guy and hide him in the backyard, and that's pretty early. That's like, I'm not spoiling a lot there, and then lie to my husband about it, not
Mm-hmm.
because it's an emotional thing, but because it's a logical thing. And it was kind of
Mm-hmm.
this weird moment where you're like, that's oddly robotic, but oddly human too. And so it's kind of hard for me just to say like one way or the other because it's like there are layers. You have the visions doing very human things because they're robots, and the visions being obviously not human because they're robots. And so it was really well done. Like it made me think more about it.
Oh, for sure. How about you, JP? What are what are your takeaways?
Um, there was that. I don't know. There was something that I really liked in there. Shoot, I want to find it now. It was talking about kind of how, well, like the Vision family, especially the kids, they get kind of persecuted a lot at school because they're not human. Um, and that is kind of, I feel like, a big theme here in this story. And at one point, it kind of goes over, I think it was a poem kind of written about the Jews and how, uh,
Yeah.
It's from Shakespeare,
yeah,
from The Merchant of Venice.
it's like if we like referring to like normal people, so whoever writing this, if like I cry, the Jews cry, does that not make them the same as me? And it's like kind of relating all these things that they have in common with the Jews back in kind of relating it back to like Hitler and all that. Like, I don't know, it's weird because it just makes, if you can like relate to somebody, it makes them more human, and so it kind of makes the visions more relatable to everybody else, even though they see him as somebody completely different, not human, not even relatable.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then, here's my question for you guys, because as we're talking about this, like how they're like we're kind of using the visions, these robots, as a mirror for us. How do you feel like they're the same to people, and how do you feel like they're different?
I don't know. I like as much. I want to look at them like the Vulcans, where they're like this purely um, logical being. You know, I think that's where my brain goes, but it's not really that. I think what's so interesting about the Vision. I was just brushing up. I was confirming what I knew about the Vision. So basically, his origin story was that it's a little bit different in the comics than it is in the movie. They basically Ultron builds the Vision, and what he does is he goes and he takes the original Human Torch, who was an android way back in Marvel Comics #1. So not the Fantastic Four Human Torch. There was a Human Torch that cruised around with Captain America in the 40s that was an android. So he takes that body and they paint it red and they change it from having fire powers to having like matter manipulation powers, basically. Like its density can shift, like vision can phase, you know.
Right.
And they paint it red. It wakes up and it's still the Human Torch. And Ultron's like, "What the f?" and beats the snot out of it. And then he's like, "All right, we got to fix that." And so then he puts the brain of Simon Williams, who I don't think you met yet in issues 1 through 6, but he comes up later on in the book. They take the brain of Wonder Man and they put it inside of the Ultron body, like his neural patterns, basically. So he's an android that has a personality infused with the personality of a human being. And I feel like, and you learn, again, this is kind of a spoiler. I'm sorry you haven't read past issue 6, but you learn a little bit more about the origin of his family and like where their personalities come from and like whose minds they're built off of. And so you see like this real dichotomy between like robot and the personality, you know? And so like you get these little flare-ups from the Vision's wife or the Vision's children, and like those are very human moments. And I feel like those very much come from these human personalities that they're infused with. But then there's also the very computer driven, the very android driven things. And so like they don't act like AI from Blade Runner, from Westworld or anything, you know. They're not fully human. There almost seems to be like this internal war between the two of them that I find really intriguing.
What do you think, JP?
Repeat your original question for me. Sorry.
How are they similar to humans, and how are they different?
Okay, yeah. They're all, I don't know. The biggest thing for me is like it's hard to not notice like they are superhuman. They're like they can phase. They have super strength. They can like his son, what's his name? Vin.
Vin, yeah.
So yeah, Vin basically gets in a fight at school and like everybody's freaking out because like he could easily kill the kid, and like that's not something that most of us have to worry about. So it's easy to see that they're different in that way. Like these are super beings, not just regular human beings.
Mm-hmm.
And also like because they are robotic, like you can definitely see a lot of the emotions that they have throughout the issues, but like they're not natural like it is for us. It's more something that they're learning. Vision kind of talks about that, I think with the kids, how like they can read a book and learn all these different things, all these different facts, but to be able to put it into context and to like make decisions based off of it, that's more of a human thing that they're kind of learning. Like, what does it mean that, I don't know, in today's day and age, I guess, like, what does it mean that like coronavirus is a thing? Like, what does that mean? We have to stay back 6 feet? Whatever. I don't know. I'm thinking about stuff that's going on now, but like just putting information into context and basing decisions because of them.
Like,
I think
data doesn't just translate into the correct actions.
Right. They're not quite like computers where they can like just monitor and like display a bunch of information. they can actually, I don't know, use it to make their own decisions, I guess.
Yeah, see, it's similar. It's funny because that's similar to my thought. That for me, I was like, the visions are just a bunch of big babies,
Yeah.
like super powerful, super smart babies. They don't understand really the consequences of their actions long term. They don't quite understand like empathy with other people because those are very human things, and you see them like start to get pieces of it,
Mm-hmm.
but you but they don't have like the full thing of it. So it's like I really wondered about that. Like, if this wasn't just like, oh, I'm gonna make myself a wife and two children that are the right age for me to want them. I really wonder if they'd like grown up and had those experiences, if it would have been different. Like,
Oh,
for
totally.
example, when the wife, what's her name? Why am I forgetting her name?
Virginia, I think.
When Virginia, the thing that happens is the daughter is walking through the house when this villain busts in, can't remember his name. He's the brother of Mr. Brainwave, and just stabs her in the chest and like destroys her. And Virginia grabs something, whacks him over the head with it, and he dies. Which is
Right.
like a
Yeah.
very normal thing, you know? She's like defending her family from this guy that wanted to kill them.
Right.
But then after that, like with her then going to bury the body and lying to her husband, it just reminded me of like some child like not wanting you to find out that they did something, even though it was a good thing because they don't understand it.
Totally. Totally. It's really, really, really interesting. I don't know. I feel like more. I guess, do we have any more comments on this before I like shift topics?
I don't think so.
Yeah, go for it.
I think. I mean, it's hard not for me to not read into, like, read Tom King into Tom King things. You know, like we're well aware at this point of his experiences in the Middle East and like his struggles coming home. Like Mr. Miracle was a huge metaphor for like PTSD and what it's like to be in war and depression and all of that. And his Batman series has been like how a spouse can pull you out of a dark place and how they can be your anchor. Strange Adventures that's coming out right now seems to be very much about like looking back on your efforts in a foreign land and asking like, was I a hero there, or like, was I a villain there? You know, like that seems to be a large part of the discourse here in 2020. Is like, maybe all this colonialism of the last 100 years has been more hurtful than harm, like than good, you know, and like maybe those wars in the Middle East weren't the best. And so that seems to be what he's going over in Strange Adventures, is like his struggle there. And I very much see in Vision like this idea of like playing home, you know? Like Vision is an android that was created by one of the Avengers' greatest villains that became an Avenger. You know, his whole life has been saving the world, going on adventures. And then so this idea of like moving to DC, which is where Tom King lives, and playing house with your family, and like there being this disconnect and a lot of it feeling hollow, a lot of it feeling like going through the motions, you know, like you built a robot family to go and live the suburbs dream. Like that seems like an experience that he would want to write about, you know? Like I imagine it is peculiar coming home from war, quitting the FBI and being like, and now I play suburbia, you know? Like
Yeah.
that would be weird. And so it was, I'm not gonna lie, that's what rung to me more this time reading through than anything, because I read this before, I knew the story. And so going through looking for themes, I was like, oh, this is more Tom King being Tom King, you know? And I obviously we like Tom King. We've talked about so much Tom King on this podcast. But I think that's an interesting question to ask, is like how much of our day-to-day life is us playing at day-to-day life, you know? Like is there really sincerity in the domestic dream? I don't know. It's a question that this book rose for me.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't
That's
have an answer to
interesting
that
to
either.
me because that's something that Vision fights so hard for. Yeah, he could have his like regular Avenger life, like saving the world all the time, but like he went through a lot of effort to like create his family. And I remember the scene where so the daughter Viv, she kind of gets taken out, kind of like what T was saying, and they Tony Stark is helping um, try to get her back to normal. And there's a scene where basically they shut down like power for the entire U.S. Vision's doing whatever is necessary to get his family. He says, Tony Stark, you're my colleague, you're a fellow Avenger, my oldest friend. But if you touch that button, referring to like the switch button to the power and stuff, I will kill you. He's just like straight up about it. It's like, this is more important than the Avengers. This is more important than saving the world or even you, like my family, the one that I created. That I don't know. In theory, I don't like. It doesn't seem to serve a purpose, but like it's what's important to Vision and like to humans. Like it makes sense. Like we're born from our families, we're raised within our families. I don't know. It seems normal, but like, yeah, it just seems like it's something created for Vision. But like, it shows that to him, like his family is just as real, just as important as anybody else's, and like he'll sacrifice the rest of the world for it.
I think it's also, speaking of Vision and his family, it's so interesting because, again, a little bit of comics history here. Like Vision was with Wanda for the Scarlet Witch for years. They got married, and Wanda created them like fake magic babies, basically. She's like, I'm gonna alter reality, and we have a family now. And Vision was like, these kids aren't real. And she was like, these kids are real. You are a robot. And he's like, no, as a robot, your reality powers aren't working on me, really. These aren't real kids. And she's like, and like it was a huge wedge in their marriage. Like they ended up splitting because of it. And like they couldn't, Vision couldn't play house well, you know? And so this is a really interesting next step in the Vision story of him being like, I'm going to build my not real family that like I can contextualize, you know, that I don't know that furthers our discussion much, but I found it really interesting as well to be like, interesting step for the Vision.
I kind of wondered about Vision and Witch because you know, like I said, only exposure I really had to it was the Marvel movies, and yeah, I was wondering what happened with Scarlet Witch and all that.
If only you could have read issue 7.
If only.
Literally about that whole, that's all it's about is Vision and Scarlet.
It's interesting how like you have a lot of superheroes where it's like, here's a very regular person who gets powers and does something good with it. Mm-hmm. Vision never got to be a regular person. He was always someone with powers, and now he's trying to be a regular person. Mm-hmm. And so it's kind of interesting to see that whole story flipped, because usually it's people who have all those old things, like they have their Uncle Bens that make them better and keep them in sync. But now it's like Vision's going to his family and they're kind of pulling him out of sync. And so it's this really odd story, like that moment when the police officer is talking to him and Vision lies to him after going through about like how he'd saved the world so many times, like how humanity wouldn't exist without him. And it has this really interesting line that says, that line, I can't remember exactly what it says. It says like, was worse than all the good that he had done. And I was a little bit shocked by that. Do you guys remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any thoughts?
It is interesting. I don't remember who said this. I wish I did, but someone pointed out that the strength of the Marvel universe is that it's regular people that are playing a god, right? Like they rise above who they are and to accomplish these great feats. Like Spider-Man is a teenage kid that saves the day. Captain America was weak, became strong to save the world, right? And DC, at its core, it's a bumbling mess at this point, but I've been reading a lot of old DC lately, and it's about these gods that are playing at man. And I think sometimes there's a disconnect there, like in the movies, that they become like very disconnected from humanity, you know? They're very much like, we're doing our own things. we are better than all of you. But in the comics, they see like the wholesome and goodness of the world and they embrace that, right? And so I think this is such an interesting, like, funhouse mirror version of that. Where, like, Vision, like you're saying, he is born into powers. He never has any normality to him. And so, like, there's almost like this sinister twinge to his playing a man. But in reality, like, that's exactly what Superman does, right? Superman chooses to be Clark Kent because, well, he was raised as Clark Kent, but he enjoys being a part of humanity. Like, he wants to be there just as much as them. Clark Kent isn't an alien that lives with humans. He was raised by humans. There's so much of that in him, you know? But like Vision, I don't know, Vision seems like the dark universe version of like the Superman story in this, you know?
Yeah.
Where it's like, I can never really be like you. And it also has like a very negative view of like what it means to be human. You know, like humans lie, humans hide, humans cheat, humans hurt each other, you know? And like that is kind of how Vision would see humanity, coming from a clearly fact-based place.
I'm totally with you, and I do want to read this quote where it mentions that 37 times he saved the Earth after he lied to the police officer. It says, "And all of it cannot redeem him from this small moment when he crossed to the other side." Do you guys think that's fair? This small moment, this small lie that he gives, that it can't make up for all the good that he did?
I feel like that's like a very absolute view that like the Vision would have, you know? Where like Peter Parker has messed up a lot. But like Peter Parker still understands that like tomorrow he can be better, you know? But like I think Vision is very much somebody that like the second he has any weakness, like the computer brain is like, and now everything is broken, you know? I don't know. What do you think, JP?
No, I agree. I think Vision's, I don't know. Like, yeah, I totally like the Peter Parker view of it. It's like, yeah, mess up, you know, and he does it a lot, but like he keeps trying. He always does his best. Vision, like I feel like he's too used to being perfect, like being born into the superpowers, being born into the Avengers and stuff. Like I don't know, yeah, like he definitely screwed up and like, but like as soon as he screws up, that's where things really snowball, and I don't know. It seems like that's where he decides to just go all out. Like if you make one mistake, like all right, might as well just
Might as well lean into this course of action.
yeah.
And that's one of the things that I really like, and this has come up in other Tom King novels, that it's kind of like the thing that makes people a hero is not the powers, it's the fact that they consistently choose to put other people before themselves. Like if you go back and listen to our first issue about the new Adam Strange book that Tom King is doing, I mentioned in there that it's kind of like, in part of the story is that everybody's debating, is this guy a hero or not? And for me, the moment where he goes to somebody and says, I'm totally willing to put everything on the line and I want you to investigate me and see if what I did was wrong, and like had that humility, for me, that's him being a hero. And while it is really cool that Vision was really good at punching bad guys, I do think it's kind of a loss when it's like he put himself and the people close to him above everybody else. And that kind of is a really big problem. It is a little bit irredeemable, you know?
I think it's like it's an inherently selfish decision as well. You know, like Vision is he's not doing that to protect his family. I think he's doing that to protect the domestic lifestyle that he has built, you know? Like, at least that's my reading of it, is that Vision is much more saving his world there than saving Virginia or Vivervin, you know? And yeah, you're right. Like, a hero needs to be selfless, at least in the context of superheroes.
Yeah. And so like I don't think that one moment is what kind of, like it said in the quote, like it kind of made all the other stuff not even worth it. I don't think that one moment was. I think it's the fact that he kind of decided to keep going that way. because like once he lied, like he, he was sticking to that course of action.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's why this thing feels like a tragedy story, you know? At least I haven't read the end of it, but it really feels like one of those things where it's like slowly spiraling out of control. Especially because it seemed like it was like going to be such a nice thing. Like, Vision gets to have a family like everybody else. But then it's like, ooh, these people are not integrating well and they are hurting people. And, well, Viv isn't. But it's interesting to see just like this thing fall apart and Vision's like herohood fall apart,
Mm-hmm.
but not because he's like malicious, because he's like trying to do something good. It's just such a fascinating story that I feel like we don't get very much in superhero comics. And you know me, I'm not the biggest fan of superhero comics because I don't know why, but this one's really interesting because it's pulling me along and I have no idea what to expect.
I was so surprised. Like I thought, like from the beginning, I'm like, yeah, Virginia's crazy, but like Vision, he'll sort things out. But then like Vision turns, I'm like, oh no, oh
Nope.
no. I didn't see that
Exactly.
coming.
I love that you use the word tragedy for this. So this is some of Tom King's earliest work. Mr. Miracle is very much an outgrowth of this. I listened to an interview with him where he literally said the DC heads sat him down and they were like, "Can you make Vision for us? Like what you did for Marvel with Vision, can you do for us?" And he was like, "Yep, I sure can." And he made Mr. Miracle. Um, but I love here, Vision is so seeped with Shakespeare all over the place. And like this feel people always say like, oh, this story is Shakespearean. And they use it to I mean, we might lose 2 of our 7 followers here, but like people use that to describe the prequels of Star Wars, but like yeah, they talk kind of weird and like I mean, but I don't know that that's what makes something Shakespearean, you know? Or
Yeah.
people I've had a conversation with T where like people are like, "Oh, Lion King is like Hamlet with lions," but it's like, "No, like it's a little simpler than that." You know? It's not quite as nuanced. It doesn't have that Shakespeare flavor. But like I
Yeah.
feel comfortable saying the vision is Shakespearean where like there are these really complex characters that are making really interesting choices that like further the story. There's a lot of complexity, there's a lot of inner workings, and it has a larger thing to say about humanity. And so I think it's really interesting that Tom King decides to wear that on his sleeve in this, by actively quoting from Shakespeare, saying like we're going to tell a Shakespeare story with a bunch of robots about modern day suburbia.
Yeah.
And I
And
think
that is how it felt to me, like an actual Shakespearean tragedy. And it's true, I don't use that phrase very often. People, the Lion King thing, people are like, the uncle kills his dad. I'm like, okay, that's like the one thing. It's much more like the hero's journey story than the Shakespeare thing.
and so I guess we've talked about a lot of Tom King. How do you feel like Vision is very much Tom King, and how do you feel like it's unique from his other works?
See, I don't know because I'm not super familiar with Tom King, I guess. I don't know. What are
You aren't aware that this is the Tom King podcast? Me and T are very
Whoops.
aware that this is the Tom King
I-
podcast.
It's Tom King and Jeff Lemire. Those are the two we keep on coming back to.
Those are our good old sad boys. We've got I went through something hard and I'm always sad. The people.
So Tom King wrote Vision here. He
Mhm.
wrote Mr. Miracle, the new one, which is really good. He wrote Superman Up in the Sky. So you are too a Tom King boy, JP.
Oh,
And
okay. I did love Superman Up in the Sky, so
Yeah, it's because
we
Tom King
can't
makes
find
good
Tom
comic
King.
books.
now he's doing Adam Strange, which
He
has 2 issues.
also did a massive run of Batman that was a little bit hit or miss for me. It like when it was good, it was so good, guys. But then when it wasn't at all, guys. It was really disappointing. But then really great sometimes. But like he has a certain flavor to him, and like he has specific stories that he wants to tell. But this is, as far as I know, this is his only Marvel work. I should look that up. Let me look that up. But I don't know, T, how do you feel like this compares to the other Tom King stuff that we've talked about.
It's more depressing. Which
More
is
depressing than Mr. Miracle.
See, Mr. Miracle was like oddly hopeful for me. I know it's like this thing that's about this guy going through PTSD and he's a little bit crazy and reality is all messed up. But it's really hopeful for me because it's about a person who's going through all that and like still shows up every day and like works on having a life when he's miserable and wants to die. And that's like oddly hopeful to me. It's kind of like a 21 Pilots hopeful, you know, where I remember dating this girl and she's like, all their songs are so negative. And I'm like, what about this one? This one's happy. And it's like, when you will die. And I'm like, okay, you're right. And it's like, but it's this kind of like hopeful look at hard things that I like, which is not depressing to me. Facing depression isn't depressing to me. That's a good way of putting it.
I like that. So I can confirm what I said. This is the only thing from Marvel that Tom King has ever made. So, ta-da. That's true. Why do you feel like this was more depressing for you to read?
It's about the person that you're like... Because it's like we all imprint with the main character of a story, and it's about him making bad decisions and being selfish. Selfish. I realize that's important because it makes me... Because, I mean, as humans, that's kind of like part of our inheritance is that humans do really bad things sometimes. And if we're just kind of like, oh, no, nothing bad will ever happen, that's how you get like Nazi Germany or communist Russia, where so many people died, is because we weren't willing to like look in the mirror and be like, we got a lot of darkness in us. And so I realize that's important, but it's also kind of hard to sit through sometimes.
Yeah. I don't know, JP, did you find this work depressing?
I didn't find it depressing. I thought it was really interesting. Like, it's, I don't know. Now knowing kind of Tom King, Superman up in the sky, like I'm comparing the two in my head. It's like, in a lot of ways, like, you know, Vision, he was super powerful. Like, he could do a lot of things, but like, the biggest differences between him and Superman aren't like the powers that they had or anything like that. It's like the decisions that they made. Like, Vision, he like, I don't know. I think it was T that said it. Like, he was selfish. Like, it was all about him and his family. Like Superman up in the sky, it's like he left the world to go save this one little girl. And
welcome back to Superman Up in the Sky, the podcast. We will now be discussing the seminal work Superman Up in the Sky by Tom King.
I'm sorry, I can't.
Good.
Yeah, it's my favorite. But like, yeah, that's why I loved it so much. It's because like that's the kind of person I want to be. I want to be the person to make the right decisions, and Vision is not making the right decisions here.
You're dropping the ball, man.
Yeah, like it is sad. I don't find it depressing because like, you know, that's him. Like, he'll do him. Like, it's sad to see, but like, I don't know. I guess we see that a lot nowadays. I feel like a lot of people are, you know, given opportunities to do good, and instead they do things for themselves. And it's up to us to decide how we use our power and time and abilities.
Yeah, that's true.
Did you think it was depressing, Dallas?
I guess like the word I would use is more sinister. I don't know that I imprinted on Vision as much as I have other characters. Like Mr. Miracle stuck with me, you know? And like I think about Scott Free a lot, but I almost felt more like a fly on the wall in this story, where I got to like come in and be like, "Oh, look at the Vision. Look what he's up to. Oh no. Oh no. 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 Oh no. You know? Like, I was never like, oh, man, we are real selfish as people. I was like, the Vision is going crazy. So, like, it created less hopeful emotions than a lot of Tom King's other work. You know, I feel like in a lot of Tom King's work, there's this little twinge of, like, but, like, people are good. You know, like, good guys win. Like, it can be really, really dark, but, like, good prevails. And the Vision is kind of like, It's about to get real dark, guys. Good luck. Have fun. It's about to get crazy. We're gonna make a horror story about the Vision.
Yeah, I feel kind of deceived now. Like when you said Vision, I'm like, oh yeah, superhero. And then like, yeah, he's a superhero, but
It's just
like,
Vision family.
T picked it.
I know.
I know.
Especially because it's like, oh, it's about him having a family. This will be fun.
JP like sits down. He's like, it's about to be so wholesome. Nope.
This isn't what I signed up for.
Okay, but so here's a question for you guys. I just said that thing where it's like, I think it's important to kind of like go and think through, can we do those bad things? Do you agree with me there?
What do you mean?
Wait, what?
What do you mean? Rephrase.
I think it's important to read stories where it's kind of like there is a bad guy and you think like, what does it take for somebody to do that? What happens to lead up to that? And actually imprint yourself on that. At least I think that. Am I being weird, psychoanalytic like me? I was about to say something else, but it's like, no, that's just me. This is me every day.
Well, I do think like it's important to realize in yourself though, like selfishness can lead you down a really dark path, you know? Like I love what JP just said. The only difference between Superman and the Vision really was that like Superman chose to be selfless. Superman chose to be selfless. Vision chose to be selfish. And I think that there is a lot of value in asking yourself like, what are the little things that make a world of difference in my life, you know, that like makes me a net negative influence on the world or a net not positive influence on the world. And I feel like Vision is a really great cautionary tale about selfishness and what that can do to a family, to a community, and to the world in general. Yeah. So I agree with you. I think that these kind of stories are important.
Yeah, I think they're important. I don't know. I'd much rather read like a book written by like Gandhi than by Hitler, though, you know. I guess it's like, I think it's really important to like learn about, but like, I don't know. Personally, I like seeing it from the good perspective rather than from the bad. I don't know. I guess this wasn't from the bad perspective. It's more the story of a bad, I don't know, about bad decisions being made. I don't know.
Well, and it's just like, I like it because I feel like that is a cool lesson. Like that moment where Vision had done so much good, but he was able to kind of like scar all the good he did by being selfish. And that's like a lesson that we can think about. Like, even if you do a lot of good, doesn't mean that you can like justify bad behavior in the future. And so I feel like it's a really solid lesson, and I enjoy that as I'm not enjoying what the character does.
Well, you saying that, I'm glad you said that because it made me think how similar this story is to Breaking Bad, in all honesty.
Yeah.
Like Breaking Bad is about a generally good person that because of pride becomes like the vilest villain, you know? And it really is just like he consistently makes selfish, prideful decisions. And that warps who he is. It warps his entire world. And I'm not going to spoil anything because I somehow for 10 years dodged spoilers. And so I just was able to finish Breaking Bad scotch-free. And it was amazing, everyone, by the way. In case you didn't know, Breaking Bad is a good movie, good show. But like that show, it very much is like Vision, where you're kind of like, no, don't do that. Oh no, they're doing it. Oh man. Oh well.
But at the
you
same
could
time,
you could pull
totally
up. You could pull up. You could. Oh, you didn't. You're not pulling up. Okay. Ooh man, stuff's getting worse. Stuff's getting worse. Okay. And I think those stories are valuable because like you do have to check yourself. You have to ask yourself like, am I being selfish and prideful? This can hurt the world around me, you know?
That's part of the interesting thing, and Breaking Bad does this really well, is there are some things where you're like, okay, I would never do that. But there are some moments where you're like, if I was in that situation, I might do that same thing.
Well, it's as simple as like, again, here in Vision, like how easy is it to lie? How easy is it to like to save your own face, to lie and to keep things from people? But like it's poison, you know? It hurts the people around you. And yeah, I really like Logic. I hope you two both finish Vision. You're more than welcome to my Marvel account to do so because Hey, crap hits the fan. I'm not gonna lie to you. If you were
Yeah,
like,
I was just about to
man,
ask if there's a good
man,
ending.
no, there's not a good ending. It
Oh.
is not like, and then Sunshine. This is a Breaking Bad ending.
But not,
This is
it's
Breaking Vision.
and it's kind of like Shakespeare there, where it's like, oh, this goes badly, but it's not a Shakespeare thing where the person comes in at the end and they're like, oh, we worked everything out.
I
Well,
mean,
I probably will still finish it, but
the
you know,
last
I
panel
just
of
do
the
like
whole
those
thing.
good endings.
The last panel of the whole thing is Vision very eerily saying, "Life is but a dream." So I'm just gonna leave you with that. Oh my gosh, it gets so crazy, guys.
Oh
All
boy.
right.
All right.
Well, I don't know that I want to
ratings.
rate it until I've finished it.
All right. Well, you should finish it then. I really liked what we read. I read the whole thing, but I think the first 6 issues are really powerful. I also love that I've got his Tom King's bibliography pulled up right here. And the two trades, the one that you read is called Little Worse Than a Man, and the second trade is called Little Better Than a Beast. And I think those are interesting titles. Just fun fact.
Ooh, yeah.
But so I enjoyed this. It's Tom King, everybody. Tom King is the best. And so I would highly recommend reading this book. That's the rating that I will give it. Highly recommended.
It's like, get your Shakespearean comic.
Cool,
So
cool.
You
yeah.
How
didn't
about-
know you needed it.
Probably give it a good 8 mangoes.
No,
wait, that's
wrong
one of the other
podcast.
podcasts that we're
Wrong
doing.
podcast. You can't. Don't spoil the shtick. I'm going to get this close to the mic to say, don't spoil the shtick.
Okay.
All right, cool. Well, thanks everybody for listening. Do you guys have any last things to say before I sign off? I'm going to the drive-ins right now to go watch Indiana Jones 1 and 3 are a double feature at the drive-in.
Really?
So I can be far away from everybody and stay healthy, and I can see 2 great movies on the big screen.
There
Very
you
nice.
go.
I think
That's what I'm up to.
I might play more Slay the Spire because I'm addicted.
Can't do that. I can't download that. All right, cool. Well, thank you everybody for listening, and we'll see you again next week with another phenomenal interview. Well, review, not interview.
Yep. Ciao.
All right. See ya. Stay safe.
You too. Bye-bye.